The massive elven ship floated in the darkness of space above the burned planet below. Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper stood on the bridge of her vessel, the Starlight's Edge, watching the celebration lights flash across dozens of alien ships around her. The war was over. After 3 long years of fighting, the Galactic Alliance had finally beaten the Vorthan Empire. But the victory felt empty in her heart. Lirelei's pointed ears twitched as she heard the happy voices of her crew behind her. They were young elves, most of them barely 200 years old. They did not understand the true cost of what they had won. She touched the crystal console in front of her with her pale fingers. The living ship responded to her touch, showing her the damage reports from across the fleet. So many ships lost. So many friends dead. Commander Zaravex walked up beside her captain. The blue-skinned woman from Andromeda had been with Lirelei since the war began. Her 4 arms moved quickly over her own control panel as she read the final battle reports. Zara's large black eyes looked sad, even though her people were celebrating their victory. "The numbers are in," Zara said in her musical voice. "We lost 70% of our ships. The Centauri Third Fleet is completely gone. The Rigel Defense Force has only 3 ships left out of 50. Lirelei nodded slowly. She had expected this. The final battle against the Vorthans had been brutal. The enemy had thrown everything they had at the Alliance fleet above this dead world. The planet below them had once been home to 5 billion people. Now it was a burning rock covered in radioactive craters. And the civilian casualties? Lirelei asked, though she did not want to hear the answer. 12 star systems completely destroyed. 43 billion dead across all species. Zara's voice was barely a whisper. The Vorthans killed everyone they could before we stopped them. The bridge fell quiet, except for the soft humming of the bioorganic ship around them. The Starlight's Edge was hurt too. Its living hull showed scars where Vorthan energy weapons had burned through the protective bark-like armor. The ship would heal in time, but the scars would always remain. Admiral Kira Thorne's face appeared on the main screen. She looked human, but Lirelei knew better. Kira was half-elven, though she hid her pointed ears under her long brown hair. As the Supreme Commander of the Alliance forces, she had carried the weight of billions of lives on her shoulders. "All ship commanders report to my flagship in 1 hour," Kira said. Her green eyes looked tired. "We have the treaty ceremony to complete. The Vorthan Empire will surrender officially, and this war will finally end." Lirelei touched her communication. "Crystal. Understood, Admiral. I will be there." The screen went dark. Around the bridge, her crew continued their work. They checked weapon systems that would hopefully never fire again. They repaired hull breaches, contended to the wounded ship's needs. The Starlight's Edge was more than just a machine to the elves. It was a living being that felt pain and could heal itself over time. Dr. Maya Singh appeared on the smaller communication screen. The alien woman had green scales and yellow eyes that could see more colors than most species. She had been studying the aftermath of battles throughout the war, trying to understand how different species dealt with loss and trauma. "Captain Moonwhisper," Maya said, "I need to discuss something important with you. My scans of the surrounding space are showing some unusual readings." "What kind of readings?" Lirelei asked. During the war, unusual readings usually meant more enemies coming to attack. Energy signatures from the edge of the system. They are very faint, but they do not match any known Alliance or Vorthan technology. Maya's scales changed color slightly, which happened when she was worried. "I think something is coming our way." Lirelei felt a chill run through her body. "How long until they arrive?" "At current speed, maybe 6 hours." "But Captain, there is something else. The energy patterns are coming from the direction of the Sol system." "That is impossible," Zara said, overhearing the conversation. The Vorthons destroyed Earth in the first month of the war. Everyone knows. That? Maya's image flickered on the screen. That is what we all believed. But these readings suggest otherwise. Something survived in that system, and it has been building ships. Lirelei closed her eyes and tried to think. Earth was supposed to be gone. The humans were supposed to be extinct. The Alliance had received reports of the planet's destruction 3 years ago. If humans had somehow survived, why had they not contacted the Alliance? Why had they not joined the fight against the Vorthons? Keep monitoring those readings, Lirelei ordered. Send all data to Admiral Thorne immediately. If something is coming, we need to be ready. The celebration continued around them, but now it felt different. The happy voices of the various alien species seemed hollow. Their victory against the Vorthons had cost them everything. Their fleets were broken. Their worlds were burned. Their people were dead or scattered across the galaxy dot. And now something was coming from the direction of dead Earth. Lirelei looked. Out at the other Alliance ships floating in space around her. There were sleek Andromedan vessels with their crystal hulls glowing softly in the starlight. The heavy Rigel battleships looked like floating mountains of metal and stone. Smaller ships from a dozen different worlds flew between the larger vessels. Like schools of fish, but all of them were damaged. All of them had lost crew members. All of them were running on emergency power and hope. Commander Vex, Lirelei said quietly, prepare the ship for possible combat. I know we just finished a war, but I have a feeling this is not over yet. Zara's 4 arms moved quickly over her controls. The bioorganic weapon systems of the Starlight's edge began to wake up from their rest. The living ship sensed the tension of its crew and started to produce new armor plating to replace what had been lost in battle. Captain, one of the young elves at the sensor station called out, I am picking up the same readings Dr. Singh mentioned. 12 large objects moving toward us from the outer system. They are big, Captain, really big. Lirelei felt her heart start to beat faster. Whatever was coming toward them was not small. In her 300 years of life, she had learned to trust her instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling her that the war might not be over after all. The celebration lights continued to flash across the Alliance fleet, but Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper was no longer watching them. Instead, she stared out into the darkness of space, waiting for whatever was coming to show itself. The victory over the Vorthons was supposed to be the end of their troubles. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something much bigger and much more dangerous. The celebration stopped when the first human ship appeared on the screens. It was huge, bigger than any Alliance dreadnought, with straight lines and sharp angles that looked nothing like the flowing curves of elven vessels. The hull was gray, metal covered in scars from weapons that no one in the Alliance fleet could identify. Admiral Kira Thorne stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as 11 more massive ships dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Each one was different in size and shape, but they all had the same brutal, practical design. They looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war. Analysis, Kira ordered, her half-elven features showing no emotion despite the shock she felt inside. Each ship is at least twice the size of our largest dreadnought, reported her tactical officer. I count over 3,000 weapon ports on the lead vessel alone. Energy readings are off the charts. Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper's voice came through the communication system from her own ship. Admiral, these vessels do not match any known design in our databases. But Dr. Singh was right about the energy signatures. They are definitely from the Sol system. On the human flagship, Admiral Lisa Kane stood in her command center, looking at the Alliance fleet through her main screen. Her face was hard and scarred from years of fighting. She had lost her left eye to Vorthon torture 3 years ago, and the metal replacement glowed red in the dim light. Around her, The bridge crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency. "Ma'am," called out Commander Claire Bennett from the communication station, "the alien fleet is trying to contact us." "They are using standard galactic frequencies." Lisa nodded. "Put them through, but keep our weapons ready." "Amy, what is the status of our battle systems?" Captain Amy Rodriguez looked up from her tactical display. "All railguns loaded and ready. Missile tubes are hot. Energy weapons at full charge. The fleet is ready for combat on your order." The main screen flickered, and suddenly Admiral Kira Thorne's face appeared. She looked human except for the slightly pointed ears that marked her elven heritage. When she spoke, her voice was calm and diplomatic. "Unknown vessels. This is Admiral Kira Thorne of the Galactic Alliance. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions in this system." Lisa stepped forward so the Alliance could see her. Clearly, her uniform was simple and functional, unlike the flowing robes worn by many alien species. Her remaining eye was cold and hard as she looked at the woman on the screen. "I am Admiral Lisa Kane of the Terran Defense Fleet," she said in a voice that carried the weight of years of suffering. "We have come to finish what the Vorthans started." Silence fell across both fleets. On the Alliance ships, crew members looked at each other in confusion and fear. The humans were supposed to be extinct. Earth was supposed to be a dead world. How could they be here with such powerful warships? Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper felt her heart sink as she heard those words. The humans thought the Alliance had made peace with the Vorthans. They thought the Alliance had betrayed them. She could see the pain and anger in Admiral Kane's scarred face, and she understood that this was about revenge. "Admiral Kane," Kira said carefully, "I think there has been a misunderstanding. The Galactic Alliance has been fighting the Vorthan Empire for 3 years. We just defeated them in this system. We are not their allies." Lisa's expression did not change. "We intercepted your communications declaring victory and celebrating with the same species that murdered billions of our people. We know you made a deal with them." On the human ship, Lieutenant Sophie Walsh monitored the weapon systems of both fleets. She could see that many of the Alliance vessels were damaged from recent combat. Their energy signatures were low, and several ships showed signs of major hull breaches. But she also knew that even a wounded animal could be dangerous when cornered. "Admiral," Sophie reported quietly, "their weapons are powering up, but slowly. I think they are as surprised to see us as we are to see them." Commander Zara Vex stood beside Captain Moonwhisper on the bridge of the Starlight's edge. Her empathic abilities let her sense the emotions coming from the human fleet, and what she felt made her afraid. There was so much pain and anger radiating from those ships. But underneath it all, she could feel something else, desperation and exhaustion. "Captain," Zara whispered, "they are not here to conquer. They are here because they think they have nothing left to lose." The 12 human dreadnoughts moved forward in perfect formation. Their engines left no trail of exotic particles, like most space drives. Instead, they used pure fusion thrust that created pillars of blue fire behind each ship. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "Admiral Kane," Kira tried again, "we received no communications from Earth during the war. We believed your world was destroyed in the first Vorthan attack. If you survived, why did you not contact us for help?" Lisa's laugh was bitter and cold. "We tried to contact you for the first 6 months. We sent distress signals on every frequency we knew. We begged for help as the Vorthans burned our cities and killed our children. But you never answered." The truth hit Kira like a physical blow. The Vorthans must have been jamming communications from the Sol system. The Alliance had never received any calls for help from Earth. They had believed the initial reports of the planet's destruction, because no other signals had come from that direction. On the human ships, the crew prepared for battle with grim determination. They had spent 3 years building these vessels in secret, hiding in asteroid fields and dead moons while the Vorthens occupied their system. They had watched their homeworld burn from space, unable to help the billions dying below. Colonel Beth Morrison stood in the marine bay of the U.S. Iron Will, checking her weapons and armor. She had been a teacher before the war. Now she was a soldier who had killed more enemies than she could count. Like everyone else in the human fleet, she had lost everything to the Vorthens and their allies. "Ma'am," Engineer Kate Phillips called out from her station, "the alien ships are not taking aggressive positions. If they wanted to attack us, they would be spreading out to use their superior numbers." Lisa considered this. The Alliance fleet had nearly 200 ships, while the humans only had 12. But the human vessels were much larger and more heavily armed. It would be a costly battle for both sides. Dr. Maya Singh watched the confrontation from her science vessel. Her instruments were detecting massive energy buildups on both fleets as weapon systems came online. She had studied war for most of her life, but she had never seen two groups of people who had been fighting the same enemy prepare to destroy each other. "This is madness," she said to her assistant. "They are both victims of the same war. The Vorthens are the real enemy here." Captain Amy Rodriguez studied the Alliance fleet through her targeting systems. Many of their ships were beautiful, especially the elven vessels that seemed to be grown rather than built. But beauty would not stop human railgun rounds or fusion. "Missiles. Admiral," Amy reported, "we have firing solutions on their command ships. One salvo from the fleet will take out their leadership and break their formation." Lisa nodded, but did not give the order to fire. Something in Admiral Thorne's voice had made her pause. The woman seemed genuinely confused about the situation, not like someone who had betrayed humanity to make peace with the Vorthens. "Commander Bennett," Lisa said, "ask them about the Vorthen surrender. I want details about how this war ended." Claire opened a channel to the Alliance flagship. "Admiral Thorne, our commander wants to know about the Vorthen surrender. How exactly did this war end?" Kira looked surprised by the question. "There was no surrender. We destroyed their last fleet in this system 6 hours ago. Every Vorthen ship was either destroyed or disabled. Their empire is finished." Lisa felt something cold settle in her stomach. If the Alliance had destroyed the Vorthens completely, then they had not made peace with the Empire. They had been fighting the same war as humanity, just in different parts of the galaxy. "Show me the wreckage," Lisa demanded. The Alliance sensors shifted to show the debris field on the other side of the planet. Thousands of pieces of Vorthen. Ships floated in space, their twisted metal hulls still glowing from the heat of recent explosions. Lisa recognized the design immediately. These were definitely Vorthen vessels, and they were definitely destroyed. For the first time in 3 years, Admiral Lisa Kane felt uncertainty creep into her heart. Had the humans made a terrible mistake? Dr. Maya Singh stared at her sensor readings for the 3rd time, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. The energy patterns from the human ships were completely different from anything in the Alliance databases. They were not Vorthen technology, and they were not based on any known Alliance designs either. These humans had developed something entirely new during their 3 years of isolation. "Captain Moonwhisper," Maya called through the communication system, "I need to speak with you urgently. These readings are not what we expected." Lirelai appeared on Maya's screen, her elven features showing the strain of the tense situation. Around her, the bridge of the Starlight's edge hummed with nervous energy as the crew watched the standoff between the two fleets. "What have you found, Doctor?" Lirelai asked. "The human ships show signs of rapid technological development under extreme stress. Look at these hull patterns." Maya sent her data to the elven captain's screen. "These scars are not from one battle. They are from years of constant fighting. and the energy signatures suggest they have been building and rebuilding these ships multiple times. Commander Zara Vex stepped closer to read the data. Her 4 arms moved quickly over her own sensors as she confirmed Maya's findings. As an empath, she could feel the emotions radiating from the human fleet more clearly than anyone else on the Alliance ships. "Captain," Zara said quietly, "I am sensing something from their fleet that I did not expect. They are not filled with conquest desire. They are exhausted and grieving. Whatever they have been through, it has cost them everything." Lirelai looked out at the 12 massive human ships holding position at the edge of weapon range. Each vessel bristled with guns and missile launchers, but they had not opened fire yet. That meant Admiral Kane was still listening, still considering the possibility that this confrontation was based on a misunderstanding. "I want to speak with them directly," Zara announced. "My people have natural empathic abilities. I can sense their true intentions better than any sensor or communication system." "That could be dangerous," Lirelai warned. "If you are wrong about their intentions, you could be flying into a trap." Zara's large black eyes were determined. "Captain, if we are going to fight, let it be because we truly have no choice. Let me try to prevent another war." On the human flagship, Admiral Lisa Kane was having her own doubts about the situation. The Alliance fleet's reaction to their arrival had not been what she expected. Instead of guilt or defiance, she saw genuine confusion and shock. These people truly seemed surprised that humanity had survived. "Ma'am," Commander Claire Bennett reported, "we are receiving a request from one of the alien ships. A small shuttle wants permission to approach us for direct talks." Lisa studied the sensor display showing a tiny ship detaching from one of the Alliance vessels. It was unarmed and moving slowly, clearly not a threat to our massive dreadnoughts. But it could still be a trick. "Captain Rodriguez, what do you think?" Lisa asked her tactical officer. Amy Rodriguez checked her weapon systems one more time before answering. "The shuttle poses no threat to us. If it contains a bomb, our shields can handle it. If it contains diplomats, maybe we can avoid unnecessary bloodshed." "Colonel Morrison," Lisa called to her Marine commander, "prepare a security detail. Allow the shuttle to dock, but keep our guests under heavy guard." Colonel Beth Morrison nodded and selected her best soldiers for the task. She had been a teacher before the war, but 3 years of fighting had turned her into an expert soldier. She knew how to read people and situations, and something about this whole confrontation felt wrong to her. The shuttle from the Starlight's edge approached the human flagship slowly. Inside, Commander Zara Vex sat alone in the pilot's seat, her blue skin almost glowing in the dim light. She had volunteered for this mission because her empathic abilities might be the key to preventing a battle that would benefit no one. As the shuttle docked with the UE's iron will, Zara could feel the emotions of the human crew washing over her. Like waves. There was anger, yes, but it was the kind of anger that came from pain and loss, not from hatred or evil. These people had been hurt badly, and they were striking out at what they thought was the source of their pain. Colonel Morrison met Zara at the airlock with 6 armed Marines. The sight of the blue-skinned alien woman with 4 arms caused some surprise among the human soldiers, but they maintained their professional composure. "I am Commander Zara Vex of the Andromedan Republic," Zara said in perfect English, which surprised the humans even more. "I request an audience with Admiral Kane to discuss the current situation." "Follow me," Beth said simply. "Keep your hands visible and make no sudden movements." As they walked through the corridors of the human ship, Zara was struck by the practical, industrial design of everything around her. There were no decorations or beautiful artwork like on Alliance vessels. Every surface was functional, built for war and survival. The walls showed repair patches and hastily welded seams that spoke of constant maintenance under difficult conditions. The crew members they passed looked tired and worn down. Many showed scars from combat, and all of them carried weapons even inside their own ship. These were people who had learned never to feel completely safe, even in their most protected spaces. Admiral Kane waited in her ready room, a small chamber next to the main bridge. The room was spartanly furnished with just a desk, 2 chairs, and a display screen showing the current tactical situation. Lisa sat behind her desk, her remaining eye studying the alien diplomat who had risked her life to come aboard. "Commander Vex," Lisa said, "you have 5 minutes to explain why I should not order the destruction of your fleet." Zara sat in the offered chair and looked directly into Lisa's eye. As an empath, she could feel the human admiral's pain like a physical weight pressing down on both of them. This woman had lost more than just her eye to the war. She had lost her faith in the possibility of peace. "Admiral Kane," Zara began, "I can sense your emotions as clearly as I can see your face. You are not a conqueror or a murderer. You are a protector who believes she has been betrayed by people who should have been her allies." Lisa's expression did not change, but Zara felt a flicker of surprise in her emotional field. "The Galactic Alliance never received any distress calls from Earth," Zara continued. "We believed your world was destroyed because that is what the Vorthans wanted us to believe. They jammed your communications to prevent us from helping you, and they sent false reports of Earth's destruction to keep us from looking for survivors." "Prove it," Lisa said flatly. Zara activated a small device on her belt that projected a holographic display between them. "These are the communications logs from our intelligence division. You can see that the last transmission from the Sol system was received 3 years and 2 months ago. It reported the complete destruction of Earth and the evacuation of all Vorthan forces from the system." Lisa studied the holographic data with growing understanding. The timestamp matched exactly with the day the Vorthans had jammed all outgoing communications from Earth. If the Alliance had received a false report at that time, they would have had no reason to send help to a dead world. "We tried to contact you," Lisa said, her voice slightly less hostile than before. "For 6 months, we broadcast on every frequency we could access. And we tried to contact you when we began our campaign to liberate Vorthan-occupied systems," Zara replied. "But we received no response from the Sol system because we thought it was empty." The terrible truth began to settle over both women. The Vorthans had deliberately kept the 2 forces apart, knowing that together they would have been unstoppable. By isolating humanity and convincing the Alliance that Earth was dead, the Empire had prevented their enemies from combining their strengths. Engineer Kate Phillips peered on the room's communication screen. "Admiral, I have been monitoring the alien ship's transmissions. Their communication protocols are completely different from Vorthan technology. These people have been fighting the same enemy we have." Lisa leaned back in her chair and closed her eye. For 3 years, she had believed that humanity stood alone against the galaxy. She had built her fleet and trained her crews with the understanding that everyone else had abandoned them to die. Now she was learning that other people had been fighting and dying to stop the same evil that had destroyed her world. "How many did you lose?" Lisa asked quietly. 43 billion across all Alliance species," Zara replied. 12 star systems completely destroyed. 70% of our military forces eliminated. The war cost us nearly everything." Lisa opened her eye and looked at the alien woman sitting across from her. "We lost 8 billion on Earth alone. Another 2 billion in the colony worlds. My entire civilization reduced to the few thousand people on these 12 ships." For a moment, both women sat in silence, thinking about the enormous cost of the war that had just ended. Then Zara leaned forward and spoke with quiet intensity. "Admiral Kane, the Vorthans are defeated. Their empire is broken. But if we fight each other now, they will have won after all. They will have succeeded in destroying both of our civilizations, even in death. Lisa Kane had been making hard decisions for 3 years. She had ordered attacks that killed thousands of enemies and led to the deaths of many of her own people. But this decision felt different. A medical bay of the Starlight's Edge had never hosted human patients before. Healer Sylviana Starweaver moved carefully around the strange beings who had been brought aboard from the human fleet. Their bodies were so different from elven physiology, but pain and exhaustion looked the same on every face regardless of species. Their cellular structure is fascinating, Dr. Nina Foster said as she worked alongside the elven healer. The human scientist had volunteered to come aboard the Alliance, shipped to help treat wounded crew members from both fleets. I have never seen anything like your bioregeneration techniques. Sylviana's hands glowed with soft green light as she encouraged the natural healing processes in a human soldier's injured arm. Your people heal much faster than we expected. There is a resilience in human biology that our medical texts never mentioned. The two women worked in comfortable silence, sharing knowledge that their species had developed over centuries of separate evolution. Around them, other humans and Alliance members were beginning to interact with cautious curiosity. On the bridge, Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper stood beside Admiral Lisa Kane, both women looking out at the combined fleet through the ship's main viewer. The human admiral seemed smaller somehow, without her armor and weapons, but no less formidable. Her scarred face showed signs of the terrible stress she had carried for 3 years. Your ships are beautiful, Lisa said, watching an elven frigate glide past with its organic curves and living hull. They look like they grew instead of being built. In many ways, they did, Lirelei replied. We cultivate our vessels over decades, nurturing them from seedlings into full starships. Each one is unique, with its own personality and preferences. Lisa shook her head in amazement. We built our ships in 6 months using whatever materials we could salvage. Every hull plate was torn from destroyed Vorthan vessels or melted down from the wreckage of our cities. The contrast between their approaches to shipbuilding reflected the different experiences of their species during the war. The Alliance had fought with established technology and industrial bases. Humanity had been forced to innovate and improvise. Just to survive, Commander Robin Hayes stood in the shuttle bay of the UE's Iron Will, watching Alliance technicians examine human fighter craft. The small ships looked crude next to the elegant alien vessels, but they had been built for one purpose: killing Vorthans as efficiently as possible. Your weapon systems are incredibly advanced, commented an elven engineer whose name Robin had not learned yet. These plasma cannons are more powerful than anything in our arsenal. We had to make them powerful, Robin replied. We could not match Vorthan numbers, so every shot had to count. Every ship had to be able to take on multiple enemies. The engineer nodded with understanding. Necessity breeds innovation. Your people accomplished in 3 years what most species take decades to develop. In the intelligence center of Admiral Thorne's flagship, analysts from both fleets worked together to piece together the complete picture of Vorthan activities during the war. Commander Zara Vex coordinated the effort, using her empathic abilities to help the different species communicate more effectively. The pattern is becoming clear, announced a Rigel technician whose rock-like features made his expressions hard to read. The Vorthans deliberately kept our forces separated by controlling information flow between different sectors. Look at this, added Lieutenant Janet Torres from the Human Intelligence Division. She had been a communications officer before the war and understood signal analysis better than most. Every time the Alliance tried to contact outer systems, the Vorthans intercepted and redirected the messages. Dr. Maya Singh studied the data with growing admiration for the enemy's strategy. They were not just trying to conquer us. They were trying to make us defeat ourselves through isolation and mistrust. The revelation that their enemy had been more cunning than anyone realized brought the two fleets closer together. They had all been victims of the same deception, manipulated into fighting alone when they should have been fighting together. Admiral Kira Thorne called a meeting of all senior officers from both fleets. The conference room aboard her flagship had been enlarged to accommodate the different species and their various physical needs. Humans sat beside elves, while Andromedans worked with Rigel commanders to plan their next moves. The Vorthans may be defeated, but their empire was vast, Kira began. Our intelligence suggests that several warlords escaped the final battle with significant forces. They are scattered across the outer rim, probably trying to regroup. Admiral Kane leaned forward in her chair. How many ships are we talking about? Perhaps 50 or 60 vessels per warlord. 5 different groups that we know of. Kira's expression was grim. Each one has enough firepower to threaten entire star systems. Then we hunt them down, Lisa said simply. We do not let them rebuild what we just destroyed. Captain Amy Rodriguez nodded in agreement. The human fleet is ready for extended operations. We have been living in space for 3 years. We can continue the fight as long as necessary. But Captain Moonwhisper raised a concern that had been troubling her since the fleets first met. Our two forces have very different fighting styles and technologies. We need time to learn how to work together effectively. I volunteer to help with that, Commander Robin Hayes said. I have been studying your ship designs and flight patterns. I think we can develop combined tactics that use the best of both approaches. Over the following days, joint training exercises began throughout the combined fleet. Human pilots learned to work with elven bioships that responded to emotional cues as much as physical controls. Alliance gunners practiced with human weapons that relied on raw kinetic energy instead of exotic particles. The cultural exchange was just as important as the military cooperation. Engineer Kate Phillips spent hours with Alliance technicians, learning about technologies that her people had never imagined. Crystal-based computers that grew their own circuits. Weapons that drew power directly from nearby stars. Ships that could heal their own damage given time and proper cared out in return. The Alliance learned about human innovations born from desperation. Armor that could be repaired with simple tools and common materials. Weapons that could be manufactured in basic industrial facilities. Tactics designed for fighting when outnumbered and outgunned. Your people are remarkably adaptable, Sylviana told Dr. Foster as they worked together in the expanded medical facility. Most species would have been broken by what you endured. Nina smiled tiredly. Humans are stubborn. Sometimes that is a weakness, but sometimes it is our greatest strength. The first joint operation came when sensors detected a Vorthan warlord's fleet attacking a civilian colony in the Tau Ceti system. The combined Alliance and human force jumped to hyperspace immediately, eager to test their new cooperation in actual combat. The battle lasted only 4 hours, but it proved that the two fleets could work together effectively. Human dreadnoughts provided massive firepower while Alliance ships used their superior speed and maneuverability to outflank the enemy. When the fighting was over, the Vorthan survivors surrendered rather than face complete annihilation. Well done, Admiral Kane, Captain Moonwhisper said over the communication channel as they watched the last enemy ship power down its weapons. The same to you, Captain, Lisa replied. I think we make a good team. Standing on the bridge of her ship, Lisa Kane looked out at the Alliance vessels moving alongside her own fleet in perfect formation. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something she had almost forgotten: hope for the future. The war had taken everything from both sides, but it had also taught them something valuable. They were stronger together than they had ever been. Apart, the Vorthans had tried to keep them separated, but they had failed. Now the galaxy would see what humans and elves and all the other species could accomplish when they fought as one people with one purpose. The healing would take time, but it had already begun. The final battle took place in the Proxima Centauri system, where the last Vorthan warlord had gathered the remnants of 3 separate fleets. Admiral Grace Palmer led the second wave of human reinforcements, her ships dropping out of hyperspace. Just as the enemy thought they had gained the upper hand against the first Alliance assault. "All ships, this is Admiral Palmer," Grace announced over the fleet communication channel. "Execute formation Delta 7. Show these Vorthans what happens when you threaten innocent people." The human dreadnoughts moved with practiced precision, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that had been refined through years of constant warfare. Beside them, the Alliance vessels flowed like living creatures through space, their bioorganic hulls gleaming in the light of the system's red. Dwarf Star Captain Luna Brightblade piloted her elven fighter through the enemy formation with impossible grace. Her small ship danced between Vorthan energy beams, while her weapons carved through enemy armor like a sword through silk. Behind her, a squadron of human fighters provided covering fire with their brutal but effective plasma cannons. "Luna, you have 3 bogies on your tail," called out Commander Janet Torres from her position aboard the UES Defiant Storm, coming around to assist. The human and elven fighters worked together as if they had been training together for years instead of weeks. Where the elven ships provided speed and maneuverability, the human craft brought overwhelming firepower and armor that could absorb tremendous damage. On the bridge of the Starlight's Edge, Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper coordinated the combined fleet's movements with Admiral Lisa Kane. The 2 women had developed an almost telepathic understanding of each other's tactics during their weeks of cooperation. "Lisa, we need to hit their command ship before they can escape," Lirelei said through their private communication channel. "Already on it," Lisa replied from her position aboard the Iron Will. "Amy, target their flagship with everything we have." "Captain." Amy Rodriguez smiled grimly as she selected targets for the human fleet's main guns. The combined firepower of 12 dreadnoughts could crack planets, and 1 Vorthan command ship would not be able to withstand their focused assault. The enemy flagship tried to flee when it realized the battle was lost, but Commander Zara Vex had anticipated this move. Her empathic abilities allowed her to sense the enemy commander's fear and desperation, giving her insight into his likely actions. All Alliance ships moved to intercept the fleeing command vessel, Zara ordered from her position on Admiral Thorns. "Flagship, do not let them escape to threaten more innocent lives." The battle ended when the Vorthan command ship surrendered rather than face certain destruction. As the last enemy vessels powered down their weapons, a cheer went up throughout the combined fleet. The war was truly over now, with no more warlords hiding in the outer systems. Dr. Maya Singh watched the celebration from her science vessel with mixed emotions. The war had cost so much, but it had also brought together species that might never have cooperated otherwise. The bonds forged in battle would shape the galaxy for generations to come. "It is finished," she said to her assistant. "The Vorthan Empire is finally extinct." But even as the fleets celebrated their victory, work was already beginning on the next phase of cooperation. In the Vega system, construction had started on Unity's Hope, a massive space station that would serve as the headquarters for the new combined fleet. Admiral Kira Thorne stood in what would become the station's main conference room, watching. Human and elven engineers worked side by side to install the complex systems that would keep thousands of different species alive and comfortable in one structure. "The design is remarkable," commented engineer Kate Phillips as she supervised the installation of human-designed life support systems. "Your people's biotechnology integrated perfectly with our industrial methods." Healer Sylviana Starweaver nodded in agreement. The living sections of the station will be able to adapt to the needs of any species. It truly will be a home for everyone. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Human industrial techniques had been combined with elven biotechnology and the crystal-based systems of other Alliance species. The result was a structure that was both incredibly strong and beautifully organic, capable of supporting millions of inhabitants while maintaining harmony with the space around it. Admiral Lisa Kane walked through the corridors of the nearly completed station with Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper, both women amazed at what their people had accomplished together. The walls showed a blend of human functionality and elven artistry that neither species could have achieved alone. "My people never believed in beauty for its own sake before the war," Lisa said as they passed a section where living vines grew, in patterns that followed the flow of air through the station's ventilation systems. "We thought it was a waste of resources. And my people never understood the elegance of pure function," Lirelei replied, running her fingers along a human-designed support beam that was both incredibly strong and pleasing to look at. "We have learned much from each other." The formal ceremony to establish the Terra Alliance Accords took place in the station's central auditorium. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to witness the signing of the treaty that would unite their worlds in peace and mutual defense. Admiral Grace Palmer stood beside Commander Robin Hayes as they watched the proceedings. Both women had lost friends and family in the war, but they had also gained something precious: the knowledge that the galaxy was full of people worth fighting to protect. "Do you think it will last?" Robin asked quietly. "Look around you," Grace replied, gesturing at the diverse crowd of beings who had come together to celebrate their unity. Humans working with elves, Andromedans sharing technology with Rigel engineers. Species that never knew each other existed now planning colonies on shared worlds. "Yes, I think it will last." Dr. Nina Foster sat with her new colleagues from a dozen different species, comparing notes on medical techniques that could benefit everyone. The war had accelerated scientific cooperation by centuries, bringing together knowledge that had been developed in isolation across the galaxy. "We should establish a joint research institute," suggested Sylviana. "A place where all species can work together to solve the challenges we face." "Already planned for," Nina smiled. "The new station will have the largest research facility in known space. Every species will contribute their best scientists and their most advanced equipment." As the ceremony concluded, Captain Luna Brightblade found herself standing beside Lieutenant Sophie Walsh on the observation deck that looked out over the growing fleet. Ships from dozens of worlds floated in formation, their different designs, creating a beautiful tapestry against the stars. "Hard to believe we were ready to fight each other just a few months ago," Sophie said. Luna nodded, her elven features thoughtful. "Fear and misunderstanding nearly cost us everything. But we learned to see past our differences to the common bonds that unite all thinking beings." The final document was a simple statement that would reshape galactic civilization. The Terra Alliance Accords welcomed humanity into the Galactic Alliance, not as subjects or junior partners, but as full equals with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. Admiral Lisa Kane signed her name beside Admiral Kira Thorne's, the two women representing not just their own species, but all the people who had fought and died to make this moment possible. Around them, representatives from every member world added their own signatures to the historic agreement. "The war is over," Kira announced to the assembled crowd. "Let the peace begin." Later, as the celebrations continued throughout the station, Lisa Kane stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Captain Lirelei Moonwhisper found her there, and the two women shared a moment of quiet reflection. "What are you thinking about?" Lirelei asked. "The future," Lisa replied. "For 3 years, I thought humanity had no future. Now I see young humans training alongside elven cadets, learning to fly ships I never imagined possible." "I see human," doctors working with alien healers to save lives across the galaxy. I see a future where the horrors we lived through will never happen again." As if to prove her point, a group of young officers from multiple species walked past, laughing together, as they discussed their plans for the next day's training exercises. Among them were humans who had survived the destruction of Earth, and elves who had lost their home worlds to Vorthan attacks. But they were not dwelling on past sorrows. They were building tomorrow together. "The Vorthans tried to divide us," Lirelei said. "They thought that keeping us apart would make us weak. But they made us stronger than we ever could have been alone." Dr. Maya Singh's final report on the war would conclude that the greatest victory had not been military but social. The destruction of the Vorthan Empire had been inevitable once the various species learned to work together. But the bonds formed during that cooperation would ensure that such a war could never happen again, not in the years that followed. The joint fleet would explore new regions of space, establish colonies on distant worlds, and defend the innocent from those who would harm them. The station Unity's hope would grow into a massive city in space, home to millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds. But the most important legacy of the